From Greg Olsen going on to become a commentator, to Vernon Davis joining Dancing with the Stars, let's look at what some recently retired NFL players are doing now. First up, let's talk about an athlete who almost came out of his retirement in 2021, Philip Rivers. Now, some say this footballer played at the wrong time. He was a fantastic quarterback, but the problem is there were a bunch of amazing quarterbacks when he was playing. He had to compete with players like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Ben Roethlisberger, so of course his career with the Chargers was anything but easy. But by the time he went on to join the Colts, adjusting to a new team proved to be too difficult for him. His 1 year with them was anything but good. Now, Philip did consider coming out of retirement for the Colts in 2021, but he never ended up doing that. So what is he up to now? Well, Philip still loves football. Now he's the head football coach at St. Michael Catholic High School, Alabama.
Again, no disrespect, but I think it can become just cliche. If you're 38 and you throw a bunch of interceptions, that's what they're going to say. Can't throw it anymore, can't throw the out, can't throw this, arm strength. And I almost laugh at it because I want to go, well, let's sit down and watch the...
Next up, this athlete had a career that will likely land him in the Hall of Fame, but he knew when it was time to hang up his cleats. Greg Olsen. Now, this athlete played a position that's evolved over the years.
That's why he was such a good fit for me, because I didn't like to run my routes in a box. I didn't like to run my routes where I had to be 2 yards outside the hash at 7.5 yards. And that's just not the way I...
He used to play the tight end position, and previously they basically did the same job as offensive linemen. But recently, the position has become a sort of hybrid between wide receiver and lineman. But in 2010, Olsen was one of the league's most elite tight ends. After a very successful career, he announced his retirement in 2021. The football world was curious about what his next steps would be, and he decided to stay on in the sports world as a commentator. Yup, Olsen stepped into the announcing booth for Fox, and he's proving to be just as good of a commentator as an athlete. In fact, he called his first Super Bowl in 2023. It's good to know that he can still stay involved in a sport he clearly adores so much. Speaking about cool achievements, this next player had the honor of being the first overall pick in the NFL draft, Alex Smith. We all know the amount of pressure that comes with being a top pick, and some fans say that Alex simply couldn't live up to that. Well, he's still had a great career, but his skills aren't admired enough because he apparently failed as a top pick.
I knew right there on the field that my season was done. What took me a little longer to figure out was that my life was about to change forever.
Still, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league when his career was ongoing. Smith even suffered from a very serious leg injury in 2018, but he went through with the recovery period and emerged victorious. The athlete made his return in Washington in 2020, going on to win the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. A lot of teams were interested in taking him on, but Alex decided to retire in 2021. Currently, he's working as an NFL analyst for ESPN, so as you can see, he's still devoted to the game. Let's look at this next athlete who was considered an overachiever during his career, Julian Edelman. Honestly, it seems like the New England Patriots just keep on choosing overachievers for their team, just like Wes Welker. Julian Edelman was also a football prodigy, even winning Super Bowl MVP. He was a vital member of the Patriots and really made a name for himself in the football world while gaining millions of fans. Now, Julian had a bit of an up and down season with Tom Brady in 2020 and then finally went on to call it a career. Despite being a 7th round pick, Julian ended his career with more than 600 receptions, over 6,000 yards, and 36 touchdowns. So it's fair to say he ended on a high, no matter how the last season went. Now Edelman has become a part of the NFL media, joining the cast on Inside the NFL. Plus, you might have seen him acting in a Verizon commercial. This next athlete had a bit of a shaky start to his career, but went on to really make a name for himself. After all, Vernon Davis went on to contribute massively to the Niners' achievements. His time with them spanned 4 years, from 2010 to 2014. He won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, and then went on to Washington in 2016. After a few solid seasons with them, Davis shocked his fans and the football world by announcing his retirement in early 2020. That too, right before the Super Bowl. The reason he gave for this was that football had really taken a toll on his body, but he's still enjoying time in the public eye, besides hosting a bunch of reunion specials in in MTV's The Challenge. He's also been a participant in season 29 of Dancing with the Stars. Well, you might remember this next retired player as nothing less than a relentless pass rusher, Julius Peppers. I mean, is there anything scarier than a pass rusher for a quarterback, especially one as great as Julius Peppers? He was drafted second overall by the Carolina Panthers in 2002. The athlete left the team after their 2009 season, but made his return in 2017. He spent a couple seasons with them and decided to hang it up after the 2018 season, but he retired with many achievements to his name. Peppers is a 9-time Pro Bowler and a member of the NFL's All-Decade team for the 2010s. But what has he been up to after retirement?
You know, I gotta see him a little bit more. I've seen the highlights. I haven't necessarily paid attention to any of their games and stuff like that, but you know, he looks like a decent athlete, well, a great athlete.
Well, Julius decided to stay on with the Carolinas, just in a different capacity. He's now a special assistant of football operations, but fans are anticipating that he'll go on to be a first-ballot Hall of Fame induction. Next up, you might remember this next athlete by the name CJ2K. Chris Johnson was seen as one of the most lethal players in his prime. He's the 6th player ever to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a single season. He even went on to win the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year award after his 2009 season, where he broke the record for most scrimmage yards in a season. Johnson's career took him to the Titans, Cardinals, and Jets, and he decided to call it in late 2018. He signed a one-day contract in 2019, which let him retire as a Titan. But since he left the field, Chris went on to create his own podcast, Smash and Dash, and has popped up on the NFL Network a lot of times. Now let's take a look at an athlete who decided to call it quits right in the middle of his peak, Luke Kuechly. Not many NFL players decide to retire at the pinnacle of their careers, but that's exactly what Luke Kuechly did. Just like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, the star defensive lineman decided to retire from his career at only 29 years old. But why did he do that? Well, Luke was very concerned about his health. He had received several concussions and was worried about the long-term effects of his brain injuries. But even though he stepped away from the field, he stayed close to the game. Luke served as a pro scout for a couple of seasons for Carolina and has even assisted the Buffalo Bills in their 2021 practice. Now, this next athlete also suffered from different injuries and retired as a result. Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben's body took quite the beating during his football days. In 2019, he almost missed the entire season because of his elbow injury. Even though he bounced back in 2020, Ben really struggled the following year, and sadly, it seems like his body just couldn't keep up at the end of the season. This made retirement the sensible thing to do, but ever since he hung up his cleats, Ben's been hosting his football and craft beer podcast, Footballin' with Ben Roethlisberger. Well, there you have it. These were the recently retired NFL players and what they're up to now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.